Welcome back to Mental Alloy. My name is Isaac.
I'm Jack.
I'm Matt.
Alright, and we're going to be talking about basically the campus culture at CSU.
Yeah, last semester's hate crimes that were reported by the president of the university himself, covered extensively in the school newspaper. We got a lot of emails, and I think they're a little overblown, you guys.
Very overblown.
Very overblown.
It's freedom of speech, you guys. There's no news to this at all. And you will see how overblown all of this is, really.
Yeah, so I mean, to start everything off, first email of the year that we get as freshmen from Tony Frank, which is our president, addresses, some normal stuff, good things to have in an email. And then second main part of his message is that there was a white supremacist rally, not even in our area, but in the country abroad, and he feels that it's necessary to mention in our welcome to the school email. This is a quote from Tony Frank in the email. "One cannot watch the images of the march without reflecting on our national history and the scourge of white supremacy, a stain upon humanity that we witness with revulsion." It's a little dramatic, if you ask me.
A little over the top. Certainly. And
theirs is a cowardly message of violence and terrorism. Tell that to Antifa, by the way. We'll get to that later.
Oh, yes. All right. That's going to be fun.
Indeed, signaled the murder, enslavement, and disenfranchisement of millions of human beings.
And understand this. Not even like 0.001% of the population saying, F blacks, we hate blacks. It doesn't make quite enough sense to me.
Now, I'll give him a little bit of credit here. He does mention the First Amendment as being important, so he's not totally discouraging this kind of language necessarily, but he does follow it up by saying that after elaborating on how it's the foundation of our nation, it is what makes, quote, a free and independent press possible. It offers protection to the singular voices of people fighting against corruption and the status quo. It is our strongest and most essential weapon to face tyranny. So effectively, he's saying that this small group of people that no one really likes is the main group of people who are abusing the First Amendment, and therefore these very small groups of people, he envisions himself, as most people on the left do, as part of some revolutionary ideology, when in reality everyone who doesn't think like them is being shut out. I mean, just look at YouTube, look at the media in general. There's so many examples of people being shut down and fired, banned, whatnot from various locations and services because they're conservative, yet they're the revolutionaries. They're saving the world right now.
It's just really, classic, I have the moral high ground because I'm talking about it. Yet, it's really unimportant. And I don't know. I think logic tells me that if you talk about something enough, it's going to get, overblown, and people will actually pay more attention to it and maybe agree with it. And that's not, the best way at going with things, in my opinion.
Yeah,
they're talking about they have courage and stuff, but I really don't see courage when the majority of the media and the majority of all the celebrities and stuff are backing them up, and
it's
just
it's ridiculous.
And
how are they, guys? Oprah 2020.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the main point of this is that we have a very liberal school president. This kind of stuff continues a lot. You might have heard this because it actually became a national news story, as stupid as that might seem. In one of the halls, the freshman dorms, there was a noose made of toilet paper hung from the door of one of the RAs who happened to be black. So maybe it's a hate thing, maybe it wasn't. I would have not. It certainly didn't deserve to be a national news story.
No.
This is the second email we get from Tony Frank.
Now let's really be quick on this. The dorm that this was placed was called Newsome.
So the likelihood that it wasn't actually racist is quite high, considering it might have just been a play on words.
Yeah, people like to make nicknames. Gruesome, Newsome.
Yeah, so he says in his second email, here on our own campus, we began the first week of classes with a disturbing incident in one of our residence halls. where students found a noose fashioned out of crepe paper, not
toilet paper.
in a stairwell.
It's basically the same thing.
Then a third email from Tony Frank is about DACA and about how all of these, illegal immigrants should be allowed to stay, of course. Now, I will give him credit. He has to kind of reference this because there are apparently 190 illegals who are here. So, I mean, again, we were talking about this earlier. It's kind of a tricky topic, but the parents, the kids sure don't have any blame on something like this, but the parents came into the country illegally, knew what they were going to do, had children anyway, and then are all up in arms about the fact that, oh my God, karma's coming to bite me in the ass. Like, okay, sure, it's not really worth being upset about, in my opinion. I mean, if I moved to Italy illegally, had a wife and kids, and then all of a sudden the police caught up to us, I wouldn't be complaining to the national organizations for immigration about how, oh my God, it's so bad that we can't stay here.
Yeah, very true.
DACA is a little different because there were legislations put in place that are now being repealed, but in the end, it's all relative to illegal things or illegal because without backing up the laws, there's nothing to keep the laws in place anyway.
Yeah, and then my little 2 cents, if you come here illegally, if you're enrolled in the DACA program, why don't you try to take advantage in your, who knows, maybe decade of being enrolled in a DACA program to become a citizen and actually not have to worry about that anymore? That's just a little confusing on my end. Same goes to the parents, same goes to any illegal immigrant in the country. Just do it legally. That's why we have laws in place, is so that we don't have to worry too much about, things getting too, disorderly. That's what a government has to do, is, make sure everything is in order, make sure that the laws are being obeyed, and they don't have to accommodate to anyone. That's not what a government's made for.
Yeah, just because our last president set a bad precedent doesn't mean that we are going to continue with that throughout the ages. That would be stupid and irresponsible.
Yeah, very true, very true.
After reporting several hate incidents and, a noose made of toilet paper, he says, "We have been hearing from students and faculty since the beginning of this semester that we as a university need to do a better job of communicating around bias or hate incidents." Like, okay, yeah.
Apparently,
Go get him, Tony Frank.
Emails and mass conversation about the incidents that occurred at the time is not enough. We have to do more.
Yeah, this was one of them that they did, these heroes here. Yesterday afternoon, a photo of a student with a Nazi swastika painted on her arm was posted to Snapchat. School-wide email release. Everybody gets this.
It only concerned probably
Seriously?
a few people.
It probably didn't even concern those who saw it, but somehow someone reported it because they sent it around, however it works. But, I mean, seriously, this is the president and the public safety team at our university talking about a swastika on an arm on a free platform. Seriously.
Yeah, they may be wrong, the Germans did a bad thing. The Nazi Party did a bad thing.
No one's denying that.
Yeah, nobody's denying that. We all agree that the Nazi Party is probably one of the most deadliest parties besides, Communist Party.
Soviet Russia, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Bernie 2020, guys.
exactly. But in America, you're entitled to your opinion, and you shouldn't be penalized for that. The president shouldn't be sending out emails. He shouldn't be getting...
To over 35,000 students.
To over 35,000 students. He shouldn't be getting the police involved and the public safety team involved. There's no reason whatsoever. It's not affecting anyone.
Yeah, and the thing that it boils all down to is they're just trying to make things that aren't a big deal, right? I mean, if he would have left it alone and no one would have said a thing, there would be an image on Snapchat. And
that's gone in 24 hours.
These things
it's
don't
gone
stay.
in 24 hours.
But, yeah. And no one would have known about it. Not a big deal. Maybe 1,000 people saw it at most, and I doubt that
Nobody has 1,000
because let's be
Snapchat
honest,
followers,
anyone,
unless you're like Von Miller or.
and if you're a Nazi, you probably don't have many friends. So, just going off logic there, there's no reason to blow it out of proportion. But of course, they want it to be a story. They want this in the school. He says, "Oh, I don't want to make this a big deal," but yes, you're the reason it's a big deal.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff wouldn't exist without people like you.
We wouldn't be talking
I know I
about
wouldn't have heard about it. I know these guys wouldn't even have heard about it.
and never would have affected anyone.
But now CSU is a hate crime campus, as you can see. One of the school newspapers.
As you can see, we saw hate on our campus the last semester. Help us document it. Because, hate needs to be documented, because
Well, it is a college, guys. We got to make sure everyone's safe spaces are nice and clean. Everyone gets their due orders here.
Everyone gets their stressed dogs and stuff.
Like a girl in my hall legitimately got a
5. Yep. I have 5 in my hall.
5? Yeah. Okay.
That have dogs.
It's
Because of
illegal to
stress.
have pets on dorms, but apparently if you have no real emotional problems, you can have them.
yeah, you can. If it's all feelings, and as Ben Shapiro says,
real, though.
as Ben Shapiro says, one of my favorite quotes: "Facts do not care about your feelings." We can all pretty much agree that is the truth. There is no denying it, and that's pretty much that. Thanks, Collegian. Appreciate it.
The Collegian it's campus news, so it's worth covering, but the MLK March ended up, just being a Black Lives Matter march, because instead of, in this picture that they have is on the headline of the newspaper, there's nothing that says anything about MLK. However, the only sign visible happens to be one that reads, "Jeremy Holmes killed July 1st, 2017 by campus police." So, MLK March. We're doing the good work here in order to make sure they can have another Black Lives Matter march that actually gets noticed, because the other one they had this year, no one actually came.
Nobody went to it. And guess who's on the front page? That
The
would
man,
be
the myth, the legend.
Mr. Tony Frank. Says Tony Frank led the 2018 Martin Luther King Jr. March down College Avenue. Directly behind President Frank is Susan Holmes, who addressed the crowd during the opening comments about her son's death by campus police.
I would imagine that
Now-
were there to be a pro-life march, he wouldn't be a part of that.
No, he wouldn't be part of
Of course not.
any march.
Even if it was campus.
Now, really quick, Jeremy Holmes was a 19-year-old here at CSU campus. He was holding a hunting knife, and if you don't know what a hunting knife really looks like, it's about this big of a blade. Okay, it is a gigantic blade. And on the video camera, police have told him to drop it over 40 times.
Yeah, some say 36 times, Denver Post. 36 times before he lunged. It's just, there's no way that you could spin this in a positive light, yet here we are, reliving it.
Talking
another
about
year.
it.
Yep.
And even with body cam footage and the consistent, drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. These things happen. It's unfortunate, but it happens, and you can't blame police for that. If there's a threat, it's the police's job to help eliminate the threat. And if it's at any cost, if it eventually comes to being at any cost, and that's what it comes to be. But that's why they give you 36 chances to not do that, so you don't die.
Yeah, so, if anyone doesn't actually know what this was, it happened July 1st, 2017. This is the Denver Post article after the DA ruled it justified. A Colorado State University police officer went to check on the brother and sister-in-law, while fellow CSU PD officer Phil Morris took up surveillance. Around 8:38 p.m., Morris saw Holmes walking toward the apartments while carrying a bayonet knife. Morris turned on his emergency lights and parked in between Holmes and the apartment complex. As he neared the car, Holmes unsheathed his knife and brandished it towards the officer. Morris, who was wearing a body camera, drew his gun and told Holmes to drop the knife 36 times, according to the letter. Holmes advanced, saying various variations of, quote, "kill me now," and, quote, "my life is over," As Holmes moved closer, Morris moved back more than 100 feet. As this was happening, Fort Collins Police Service officer Aaron Mast was driving by with his siren and emergency lights, pursuing someone on an unrelated burglary call. Seeing the scene, she made a U-turn, parked next to Morris's vehicle, and pulled her gun while she got out of the car. She also told Holmes to drop his knife. Morris told Mast that he would try to deploy a taser, according to the letter. As he began to holster his weapon, Holmes charged at him with the knife. Mast fired 2 shots. Morris stopped reaching for her taser, grabbed his gun, and shot 4 times. All 6 shots hit Holmes.
This
was a
undisputed.
DA.
And yeah,
Undisputed.
Tony Frank, he constantly says he's for the military, for the police, but when he is standing in front of a crowd that is definitely against police, it's hypocritical.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole campus is a mess.
It's just
sometimes.
disgraceful.
There is another thing. The Columbus Day.
Oh yes, I forgot about this. This was awesome. So we've been talking about all of these things that have been, hate incidents that Tony Frank and the public safety team decided were very necessary to talk about.
And guess who comes onto campus Columbus Day? Mr. Antifa. Knocks on the door.
The whole group, came to campus and caused
Over
$11,000
$10,000.
to $11,000 in damage in graffiti, painting various. Well, they painted their symbol on various buildings. They painted "decolonize," but mostly they painted quote
F
"fuck
Columbus."
So that was appeared on several buildings, and so you have slanderous terms and violent language causing actual damage to the university and using money of the taxpayer, because it's a government university, because it's a land-grant institution, to pay for it, and the president doesn't say a damn thing.
No
Nothing.
emails.
No emails.
Not even a mention of it in an email that he sent addressed to something else.
We give you our word.
A couple of the things
We can read
were
them out.
painted over within the day, but a couple of the Antifa signs, some of the F Columbuses were around for at least a week
This
after.
week. And it's kind of like weird feeling, because you always think of Antifa, you think of Berkeley Antifa, or Antifa in other places in the country, and I didn't know there was an Antifa in Colorado.
Yeah, presence in Fort Collins,
Yeah.
of all
And-
places.
As we all know, they're extremely violent. Yet, Tony
And if
Frank,
you even
nothing
don't,
from Tony Frank.
Yeah.
Hardly the news covers Antifa. Also, they have huge riots in Berkeley. The free speech rallies at Berkeley. A lot of you guys may think, a lot of like these fascist people were putting this on. No, this was a conservative movement that was inviting different speakers to speak at Berkeley, and they were forced to like cancel the event.
Yeah.
Liberals do not like free speech, apparently.
Of course they don't, unless it's their free speech. I heard
If it's a fact, it's against liberals. They hate it.
Yeah.
different opinions are okay as long as they're different in the same way, as Chris Reagan would put it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And, most of these people, they believe, the Columbus stuff and just still going on it. What did Columbus do? He helped discover America.
Accidentally. It doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
We accidentally discovered the cure for cancer, guys. We can't use it because it's
right?
accidental. Oh my gosh.
And I was talking to one of my friends, as we walked past it, and he said, "Oh yeah, I agree with that. F Columbus." I'm like, "Why F Columbus?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, because Columbus was racist and stuff like that." And I'm
Probably.
like, maybe,
But so is everyone.
Everyone back then,
before, 1800s for the most part?
does that mean we discredit?
1492. So Columbus.
Does that mean we discredit anybody who discovered something extremely?
Ben Franklin was probably racist, but he did a lot good.
Yeah, we don't discredit these people.
Thomas Jefferson, he had slaves.
George Washington.
He had slaves, but they did tremendous work for this nation. And I mean, to discredit them for stuff that was perfectly normal back then to the today's standards is just completely wrong.
As a society, we grow and we learn over time, and we can't look back on the past and say, oh well, these people didn't live up to our current societal standards, therefore they're worthless. It's like, but it stops there. It stops when it's white, right? Because you go to other cultures where they may not live to our societal standards, but no one cares, right? You've got really terrible nations in Africa and in the Middle East especially who don't live up to our societal standards, but because they're not white, it doesn't matter.
No.
It's just, you're white and you existed at any point in time and you were kind of racist or very racist or not racist at all, but since you didn't do something that completely aligns with what we do now, you're completely worthless. And
it doesn't even
garbage.
it doesn't even matter where you came from or where your family came from. I'm a third generation American. Both my mom and dad's side of the family came from Europe and didn't have anything to do with the slavery and the Civil War and stuff. Yet people would still accuse me of being racist and owning slaves at the time. Yet only 5% of the American population have ancestors that own slaves.
Well, yeah, even just back then, it wasn't. I mean, I'm not excluding it, but it's blown way out of proportion. We'll cover this another time, but for the most part, it's very few people back then actually owned slaves.
Yeah.
The vast majority of whites and blacks back then worked on small plantations by themselves as family farms. The Southerners that had the vast majority of the wealth were slave owners because that was the most efficient way of making money. That's like in
business.
1,000 years when we view robots as people too, then looking back on the atrocities committed in the steel industry currently, we're going to have some explaining to do.
Thank you for watching Mental Alloy. I'm Isaac.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Matt. We'll see you next time.